All right, so to continue our discussion about oligopoly market structures, some of you have probably figured out that if you suffer from insomnia, these videos are a really good way to fall asleep at night. So if you've stumbled upon these videos and you're not in my class, then by all means use them as a cure for insomnia. All right, oligopoly. I said I'm not going to put graphs on here. We've already talked about graphs and calculating revenue and profit and all that kind of stuff. What I want to do is talk very quickly about 5 different models that we use to describe or to understand oligopoly markets. 3 of them I'm going to talk about in detail. 2 of them I'm going to kind of gloss over. So the first one that I'll talk about, in detail is the cartel. And a cartel is probably not what you think it is. Most people when they hear cartel, they think of Scarface or some, Al Pacino movie like "Say Hello to My Little Friend" or, something like that. But a cartel is formal collusion. That defines a cartel. And formal collusion, what the heck does that mean? Well, here's what it means. Formal is exactly what it sounds like, right? If something's formal, it's official, right? There's meetings. The meetings have minutes, has a presentation. There's probably an agenda. There's, somebody taking notes. There's probably bagels and coffee being served. So formal means official, meaning people are communicating and again, in a manner that you would expect in terms of formal. Okay, collusion in this case really means price fixing. So a cartel, right, defined by formal collusion, is an entity that officially price fixes. Okay, and the easiest way, why? Why would cartels price fix? I don't know. Could it be to maximize profit, the goal of every firm? Yeah, that's exactly why. Okay, and the easiest way to price fix is to limit, in most cases, quantity. Because if we go back to sort of basic supply and demand, right, we have some supply, we have some demand, we have some equilibrium price and quantity. By limiting your supply, right, what do? You decrease your quantity and you increase your price. And that's exactly what happens. Probably the most famous example of a cartel, because let's face it, cartels are illegal in the U.S., right? In the U.S., it is illegal for firms to engage in formal or official price fixing. Illegal. If they get caught, they get prosecuted and sent to jail. Globally, though, outside of the U.S., cartels do exist, and probably the most famous is OPEC. OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, I think. Anyway, so OPEC, numerous examples of OPEC doing exactly what we're talking about here. They just did it recently. This video is being made in 2020, but it wasn't that long ago that they did exactly what I'm describing to, again, kind of affect the price of oil, okay? The most famous example, of course, is back in 73 when they all agreed to, they came together, formal meeting, right? Limited oil production that caused the price of oil to spike. And that's really what caused the 73 oil crisis here in the U.S., okay? The problem with cartels is the incentive to cheat. And we'll come back to this here in a few minutes. But, again, what am I talking about? Cheating, right? Here's what I'm talking about, right? All the nations get together and they agree to limit production, cut back on production in order to increase the price. They do that. They operate in that mode for a while, and exactly what is predicted happens. The cut back on the quantity, right, has a spike in prices go up. But then over time, one or more of the participants goes, That price is so high. If we just increase production just a little bit, we would maximize profit, right? And so they do, and as soon as they do, the other participants say, hey, what are you doing? And they do, and they do, and then pretty soon the whole thing falls apart, okay? So that's sort of the problem with cartels is they can't operate in the short run. They're very, very difficult to keep going in the long run, okay? So that's the first model. The second model is called price leadership. Price leadership is similar to a cartel, but it's informal collusion. Informal meaning there's no meetings, right? There's no agenda. There's nothing, there's nothing formal about it, but it is unofficial. Price fixing. And an example of this, so this is a weird one, right? Because in theory, collusion is still illegal in the U.S., but if it's unofficial, right? How can you ever prove it? How can you, how can you prosecute? And you can't, is the short answer. A good example of this is the whole value meal. So again, we're talking about oligopoly market structures. So we're talking about market structures that are dominated by a few firms. And those firms look at the behavior of their competitors and make decisions based upon that. And I believe it was Wendy's that first came out with the first value meal, right? So everything on this menu is $1. And what happened with that? Well, it almost immediately overnight caused every other player in that industry to come up with their own value meal and kind of respond in kind to this sort of advantage that they had come up with in terms of the low price option. And you can view that as sort of unofficial price fixing, right? Informal collusion, in the sense that literally overnight, all of these restaurants came up with the same sort of value meal or value pricing. But what do you do about it? I mean, nothing, right? It's not like you can go, arrest Ronald McDonald and say, hey, you and the Hamburger got together and, watched what Wendy was doing, and so it doesn't work that way. But you do see this a lot in markets that are dominated again by just a few. Another one that kind of comes to mind was the whole $5 footlong. All right, so in the sandwich segment, right, Subway, kind of the 800-pound gorilla, they start coming out with things like $5 footlongs, and all of the other competitors in that segment have to respond or risk, sort of getting left behind. Okay. Oh, sorry, I should have put it 2. That was the second model. Third model. So, contestable market. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about this. The contestable market theory is largely academic. And in short, what it does is this. It says that firms, again, looking at sort of strategic behavior and others in the field, and anticipating, right, what competitors are going to do, violate this rule right here, right? So what's the goal of every firm? To maximize profit. Well, what the contestable market theory says is that, in fact, in order to create a false barrier, right, in other words, in order to dissuade other firms from joining, what firms do is they keep or maintain artificially low profit. That way it doesn't look that great, and firms move on to other markets where there's more profit to be made. Again, it's a very, very difficult model to come up with examples. About the best I could do is there's a little bit of literature out in terms of marijuana the marijuana market in Colorado, and how a few large firms are sort of buying up all the licenses and then keeping profits low to sort of get rid of or dissuade other firms from joining. Another example might be tour guides. So a lot of times when you go to cities, especially Europe, overseas, you get an app, you find a tour guide. Well, it's free, right? They've lowered the price down to free, and in an attempt to sort of dissuade others from joining in. Of course, everybody knows that it's not really free. That what they're working on will be tips, but again, largely kind of academic. Okay. As is with the fourth market structure, Kinked Demand. In this market structure, or this, not market structure, but model of an oligopoly market structure, it's called Kinked Demand because if you look at the demand curve, it kind of goes like that. And it's a demand curve that's kinked based upon elasticity. So the elasticity doesn't actually operate the way you would assume it would, and the net result is firms kind of get stuck at one price, because if one firm raises prices, the rest of the firms don't follow, and then that firm that raised the price is sort of out of luck. And if that firm lowers price, then all the other firms join, and again, everybody's revenue goes down. So Kinked Demand, obviously not spending a lot of time talking about it. I'm going to stop there and do a video on the fifth and final model that we're talking about. Okay, so stand by.